our strategic recommendation for your organization as you continue to excel in an increasingly competitive industry and to allow you to withstand these competitive pressures for the next 5 years. So just a brief executive summary of what we hope to cover today. First of all, we'd like to identify several key issues. The first and foremost one is the unexplored expansion opportunities that you are currently facing. You have excellent operational compatibilities right now, and we would like to see you grow those into a specific way which we will detail here. You also have underutilized capacity, and we hope that our recommendation will really help you boost this capacity and really leverage the resources that you currently have within your organization. And lastly, you have a highly leveraged capital structure which will constrain the expansion opportunities that you would have available to you. So our recommendation, in short, is that you should immediately seek a strategic partnership with Shackleton Fire to improve both sales volume and customer value by partnering with their complementary service offerings. And ultimately, this will allow you to achieve a gross margin of up to $540,000 over the course of the next 5 years, which will greatly increase your bottom line. So just a brief agenda of our presentation today. First of all, my name is Andrea, and I will be walking you through the current internal and external situation that your company is facing, as well as the complication that has led to our engagement with you here today, and we will discuss the opportunity statement that we foresee for your organization. I will then pass it off to my colleague, Guru, who's going to discuss several strategic alternatives we do for your organization and our decision evaluation and our formal recommendation. Then my colleague, Sean, will detail that a little bit further, discuss our implementation plan, and finally wrap up with some risks and mitigations to make sure that we implement this way in the smartest way possible. So first, we just wanted to acknowledge that Defor is a great company. You have several key internal strengths that we view as highly responsible for your success to date, and we want to make sure that we use these in our expansion plans moving forward. First of all, you're highly profitable despite an economic downturn. So we've had trouble in recent years. Certainly more competitors are entering the market, and you have had very healthy margins, usually in the range of 30 to 50% on a number of your product lines, which is extremely high, much higher than the industry average. You also have a high proportion of your revenues coming from referrals, so you have a very high customer base or high customer brand loyalty in the restaurant segment, and we want to make sure that we do not alienate this and in fact build on it. Your installation services command a high price. We are able to do this because we provide ongoing maintenance at a lower cost, and your average service system provides $200,000 in revenue with a gross margin of 50% of the segment. So this is a huge boost to your company, because we want to make sure that we are focusing on the appropriate segments for growth. As well, we want to acknowledge the low employee turnover. The vast majority of your employees have been with the organization for 10 years or more, which is extremely exceptional, and we want to make sure that we maintain employee relations in the future, because this is extremely important and will be a source of competitive advantage. As I mentioned before, you're operating in an increasingly competitive industry. The profit margins that you have enjoyed historically are gradually being eroded as more and more players are entering your space. So what we do, we have sprinkler installation and service for restaurant businesses. We also do fire alarm installations and services and kitchen hood cleaning for the restaurant customers only. What we don't do is fire extinguisher sales and service. We don't deal with kitchen fire suppression systems, and we don't service any non-restaurant clients. So that does provide a number of alternatives, which we will evaluate for you later. I'd like to also note that competitive presence has greatly increased in about the last 4 years, so there's been downward pressure on prices, and you've seen your competitive position in terms of rankings decrease in the number of the segments in which you operate. So we want to make sure that this does not continue to erode, and why we think the status quo is not the optimal strategy for you at this time. So just touching on the following challenges which we here at Team Athletic view as opportunities. First of all, you are in a niche business. You have a number of unexplored expansion opportunities that to date, the founders have been, as we know, so focused on being in the business, not necessarily working on the business. So there are new customers available, new geographies, and acquisition opportunities available to your organization. As well, we wanted to discuss operational efficiency. There are a lot of excess capacity. Currently, a lot of your staff are operating at a 60 to 80% level, and we think that there is room for improvement here. We also have a highly leveraged capital structure based on how you purchased the distressed business several years ago. $2 million currently out on a revolving credit line on the balance sheet. So we want to acknowledge this and not overreach yourself and put the company in an increasingly weaker position. As I mentioned before, before, we recognize that you have been working so hard in the business, that you have been working on the business, so we want to make sure that our recommendation frees up your time and improves management capacity to focus on strategic issues. Which leads me to the purpose of our engagement. We are here today to address how we before pursue expansion opportunities, while at the same time fueling the internal engine of a productive business. So first of all, I would just like to take pause and focus on where value is really driven within your organization in particular. So I'd like to briefly note that on the cost side, you have exceptional cost management. Of course, there is always room for improvements, and keeping cost low is a primary concern. But for us here today, your margins are very high, so healthy. That's not what we see the key driver for growth once your revenues and your volumes increase. So while cost control is important, this is not the main concern at the moment. And then also on the price side, we'd like to switch to revenues for a moment. On the price side, your pricing structure is satisfactory. Most of your customers are completely happy with what you're charging. And significant price increases would not necessarily increase profit. So we want to make sure that we are focusing mainly on volume. And that's where the key driver of our recommendation is going to be, because that's where we see the growth in your organization really coming from in the next 5 years. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to my colleague Ruth. She'll be happy to take you through the main strategic alternatives facing before us.
Thank you very much, Andrea. As Andrea has already outlined, volume will be our key question throughout this, throughout the next few months for you to determine where we should go as a company. Looking at volume, we have 3 alternatives ahead of us. We can either approach new customers, find new geographies, or look externally. What that means for looking for new customers is expanding the business beyond your restaurant industry. Right now, most of your clients, all of your clients, are in the restaurant industry, and finding new customers would be expanding beyond that. New geographies means expanding into either local geographies that you are touching right now, or expanding into domestic areas, perhaps across Alberta. And looking externally really means taking advantage of the Shackleton Fire opportunity ahead of you right now, and we'll discuss this further. So what we've identified as a group is that approaching new customers will not be a viable opportunity for you this time, because the non-restaurant customers have specific needs which aren't developed in your company right now. D4 may not be able to meet those needs on such a short-term basis. And looking at new geographies, if D4 does go into someone else's market, that will provoke a competitive response. Like you said yourself, there's a reason why they have their clients and we keep ours. So what that really means is that we should look externally. When looking externally, we're presented with 3 alternatives. We can either buy Shackleton, we can merge with Shackleton, or we can pursue a strategic partnership. Now, buying Shackleton means looking at the current asset price of $1.3 million. We'll evaluate whether this is a good decision or not. There's also the opportunity to merge with Shackleton, which means combining the fire protection products of Shackleton with D4. It's essentially a value-added bundle. With strategic partnership, what we're looking at is working with Shackleton to pursue a mutually beneficial revenue sharing and sales lead sharing opportunity. Looking at what Shackleton Fire is doing right now, they currently have 4,000 commercial customers, and they're a product-oriented business, so that means they're not engaged in the aftermarket services. Also, their average sales are about $300 per sale. So deciding between these 3 alternatives, we actually developed a matrix to weigh our decision. What this means is we looked at 3 key criteria which are important to your company. So those 3 criteria include increasing profit. We rated that at 40% as the most important criteria. Pursuing a low-risk strategy at 30%, and capabilities in place, that means within your company. How quickly can we pick up this opportunity? That's weighted at 30%, to give us a full rating at 100%. The 3 opportunities before us are to buy Shackleton, merge with Shackleton, or pursue a strategic partnership. We've given rankings based on how satisfactory they will be with your company. 1 means low satisfactory, and 3 means highly satisfactory. So what this really, after weighing all these alternatives, what we came out to is essentially you should pursue a strategic partnership with Shackleton. This means pursuing a strategic partnership and providing a 5% commission bilaterally for referral-based businesses. So what this really means for Dufour is that partnering with Shackleton not only provides the benefits of the acquisition, but it gets all those benefits without the costs. So at this time, I'm going to pass it off to Sean, who will discuss the strategic partnership.
Thanks, Maru. So my colleagues Andrea and Maru have outlined the scenario facing our business, as well as what we see as a strategy to go forward. But as you know, a good strategy is that intersection of intent and action. So what I'm going to do is walk us through the details of the strategy, as well as how we're going to get this done in a way so that we can start making you guys money today and not tomorrow. So first off, we need to discuss the terms of the partnership. So each party is going to agree to refer business to the other party for non-offered items. As Andrea mentioned earlier, there's some products that we don't offer. These are fire extinguishers, carbon monoxide alarms, fire retardant suits, and other fire-related products. Now, our customers in the restaurant industry might need these. And given our strong relationships with these clients, we can quite easily refer them to Shackleton. Now, what do we get from Shackleton? What we get is referrals on the stuff that they have, because as Maru mentioned, they don't offer the services and the aftermarket service that we do. So the details are 5% commission on revenues that were generated from a referral from either party. And this is bilateral, so it applies to both Shackleton and Dufour. We're also going to have something which we really think is kind of the more innovative part of the agreement, and that's weekly lead sharing between the sales staff of the two companies. So you're going to get these two parties connected and talking about the different leads so that they can both increase their sales and create a way with one another. What are the benefits? So for Dufour, we get low-risk access to both new geographies and new customers. So Shackleton has a significantly larger footprint than we do, and so instead of having to go through all the trouble of an organic growth in new products or new markets, we can engage in this partnership, which basically gives us access to the best parts of Shackleton without the costs. Shackleton, on the other hand, they're going to benefit from our strong brand recognition and our customer base, specifically within the restaurant industry. We're going to be providing referrals for customers which they might not have had access to before. Again, for both parties, we get the access of complementary products and services. And so what this does is it increases the value of both of your companies, because what you're creating is a value bundle. Whereas before, they have to go to Dufour for one thing, Shackleton for another, and have all the hassle of doing that. Well, if there was a competitor that came and offered both those products, they might prefer them over Dufour and Shackleton. So by partnering, you increase the proposition to both the restaurant customers, which is what we're concerned about, as well as Shackleton's customers as well. The other main benefit of this plan is that there's a lot of Shackleton customers that are going to be needing new sprinklers soon. Over half of their customers have sprinkler systems which are over 50 years old. So by engaging in this agreement, what we do is we essentially costlessly get access to a tremendous pipeline of new sprinkler sales, which, by the way, are the highest margin business at Dufour. Now again, it's one thing, you can have a profitable business, but there's still room to increase productivity. So what we've done is we've outlined a strategy on how to improve profitability, but we also don't want to not maximize productivity, because that leaves money on the table, and I don't need to tell you guys that that's not something we want to do. So there's three, what we like to call pillars of productivity, the first of which is innovation. And how this agreement creates that is it's a creative agreement where both parties are allowed to share the best practices for their growth strategy. For example, if during the weekly sales meeting between the two parties, the weekly lead sales call, if one party has a good idea that needs a little bit of a tweaking and the other one had a good idea that just needs a little bit, you can combine the two to create something that's beneficial for both parties. Now, so we're creating a laboratory of innovation which is going to get the best ideas from both parties flowing both ways. The other good thing, and this is particularly relevant for yourself as founders of Duper, is that you now have a massive pipeline of sales leads, so you can focus on the strategic direction of the business. You can lead and not manage. So what you can do is you can step back from the day-to-day operations and lead the business going forward in the next 5 years, as opposed to getting bogged down in the day-to-day nitty-gritty details. And again, operational efficiency is the third pillar. This is why we picked volume as one of the key drivers on the value tree, because you increase the volume, you'll have more work. This is going to increase the utilization rate quite, again, costlessly relative to an acquisition. Now, this is the fun part of the strategy where we get to see how much more money we're going to make. So currently, you can see these figures are in millions. We're right around $2.6 million on the revenue side and $1.2 million on the gross margin side. A conservative estimate, which is 500 of the proposed 1,000 conversions, actually pull through. We go up to $3.1 million on revenue and then 1.4 on the gross margin. And then the optimistic case, which is we fully convert that $1,000 that was estimated, we're able to increase to $3.7 million and $1.7 million respectively on the revenue and gross margin side. Now the assumptions, again, 500 conversions on the conservative, 1,000 on the optimistic. Sprinkler refurbishments are going to be done over 5 years. So of those aging sprinkler systems, we're going to assume that they're going to be evenly distributed in terms of when the customers are going to want new ones. And we also assume that we would maintain our margins on these new sales. So what is the first thing that we suggest you do on Monday morning? You go to your office and you make the call to Shackleton. She's going to be interested because you know that she's looking to exit this business. So she's going to be looking at ways to increase the value of the business before she sells it. You're also going to want to develop a business case to present to them, again, highlighting that they get access to the restaurant market, our strong brand recognition, essentially for free. In 6 months, we're going to want to have the agreement in place. We're going to want to pursue those sprinkler refurbishments with the Shackleton clients. We're going to want to make sure that they know that the agreement is functioning and that of that massive sales pipeline that we're converting them into revenue and then into cash. At the next retreat, which will be in 1 year, we want to have the annual review of the program success. This is where you develop the key performance indicators to make sure that this agreement was valuable both to yourself and also to Shackleton, because it will take the consent of both parties. We're also given the success of the strategic partnership, we're going to want to identify other potential strategic partners. If this works, what's to stop us from doing it with other customers, with other companies, which will allow us to continue the success? And then in 5 years, given the growth that the company will have, we can essentially grow our way out of debt, which we have that $2 million credit line. So then we might be able to have some slack on the balance sheet to consider potential acquisitions or new product geography offerings to develop organically. So some risks in what we've determined the best way to mitigate it would be, the first one, fairly obvious, Shackleton does not want to partner, and so we have room to add some sweeteners specifically for the owner of Shackleton if they initially push back, and then if they really don't want to do it, there are other potential partners that you mentioned to us that might be interested in strategic lines. The other risk is that the volume increases don't materialize, so what we can do is reevaluate the incentive structure, and it is a recession. There are economic headwinds, so if we have to temporarily decrease price to move the volume, we may consider that as a potential strategy. And then the other current customers go to competitors, and what you want to do is, again, highlight the value bundle, the fact that you with your strategic alliance are a one-stop shop for those fire and sprinkler service needs. And then what you can also do is tie the service to the installation. When you install the sprinkler system, it makes sense that you'll be able to do the service on it. So if you can tie those, that would be a great strategy going forward. So again, we had a limited engagement. We would have loved to tackle more things. These are some examples. Maybe a formal sales training program to differentiate between customer service and sales. Perhaps moving towards electronic records and maybe improved accounting metrics so that we look at the life cycle. But again, the executive summary, 3 key issues. Seek a strategic partnership to improve sales volume and customer value. This is going to improve the gross margin by $540,000 over 5 years. Thank you very much, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
What risks do you see that if Shackleton is in agreement to go with this merger and some kind of revenue sharing, that if an offer comes out to Shackleton to buy the company after 3 to 6 months, risks do you see that goes to us?
So, sorry if I understand.
So we get into the agreement, and then she's obviously at a point where she wants to sell her business. What risks do you see for us?
From someone else purchasing the business? Okay. So, I mean, we will need some finer legal details will be worked out in the agreement. But again, given that it's a positive to Shackleton, we feel that a potential acquirer would be interested in maintaining a strategic agreement because they get access to our restaurant clients, but there aren't necessarily the cost for them because we've done the gross margin calculation and we've shown that it's in their best interest. So while it is a potential, we don't feel it's realistic.
So you talked about being sharing between the two companies, which is good sense for the owners. So what is the incentive for the sales force to actually work with each other with these different cultures?
Well, we do not have extensive data yet on the current incentive program. We're assuming that your sales force currently has some sort of a commission-based structure. So of course, we would certainly like to see some of that 5% commission on the revenue side that would go to the business as a result of referral-based business, trickle down somehow to your sales staff. So we do recognize that that's an issue. We think that certainly there should be a modification to your existing commission structure so that they see the benefit of generating leads. So again, we want to figure out to be leaders in online here at all possible.
The question is related to my notes. It's with a strategic partnership. We've got two companies moving customers between organizations. There's risks around who owns the customer. There's differentiated brand and value propositions. So I'm curious the thoughts on how we manage that, approach that.
I think the way that we would approach this is based on customers' needs. So talking to the client, talking to what they need. If they do need a service, then we specialize in service. We provide them the services they need. If they need the products that require signatures, then that's when we bring in our strategic alliance. It's actually a win-win situation. That way you're keeping your clients between the two of you. It's really a one-stop shop for your clients.
The financial implications to show some nice conservative growth with all industry growth. What time period is that?
So, I'll take a second one. So we assumed that, like you mentioned, these sprinkler installations, which are sort of the foremost benefit of the partnership with Shackleton, are not going to happen overnight. So we assumed that a 5-year time frame. So these numbers represent over 5 years. So we calculated over 5 years and then we divided it by 5 there on an annual basis. Because the current figures you see there are your annual figures for the most recent fiscal year. And so based on a 5-year time frame and the expected sprinkler installations, as well as additional servicing that we expect to get from 500 versus 1,000 new customer conversions, we divided that by 5 to estimate if it was steady growth, like a flat line growth. So this is annual. Did that answer your question?
And if we're adding value to the part of the issues adding value to the customer, volume of services, indicated that might not be temporary for reason revenue, or adding more value to our customers, why would it decrease price? Why would it increase price?
Right. Well, allow me to clarify. That is a if X do Y. So we're not recommending to decrease prices with this value. That's if the economy continues to be in the doldrums or gets worse, given the uncertainty in the market, then that might be a potential, that is the strategy to mitigate that. But let's be clear, we don't recommend to decrease the price currently. So it would only be if things really start to go south and there's a dramatic dry up of our sales pipeline. Then we would start to decrease the price.
We're not doing the increase prices.
We looked at that. We don't feel that given the current economic environment that's realistic today, but given our value bundle, when times get good, which they will, we might look at increasing the price to create value.
Okay.